you ever wondered why the same 15 fairy tales get told over and over and over again? I have. When I was a kid, I read everything I could get my hands on. And among those things, I loved fairy tales. And my first introduction to fairy tales was, of course, from Disney. My mom tells this really embarrassing story of when I was 3 and I saw a little boy playing outside and I decided he would be my prince, and then I chased him down until he was terrified. But I grew out of princess stories pretty fast because I learned to read. And once I learned to read, it was like those stories of princesses and princes just didn't hold their charm anymore. Because I didn't see myself in those princesses. I didn't care about boys at all. I wasn't unhappy with my parents, and it didn't speak to the problems in my life. But that doesn't mean that there weren't amazing stories that really did speak to me and teach me how to be a better person. And I really wonder why those stories aren't made into movies. So, my name is Katie Noel, and I'm going to tell you some of my favorite stories. And today, I want to talk about The Tale of the Oki Islands. This is a fairy tale from Japan. I was never very interested in Japanese folklore until I was maybe 10, and my neighbor gave me this book. It's The Best Loved Folk Tales of the World. And I say gave, and I mean he lent it to me and then I never returned it. Sorry, Jim. Thank you for fueling my lifelong loves. I really liked this fairy tale because it had everything. Adventure, and a monster, and a girl who went after what she wanted. So this girl, her name is Tokoyo, and she is the daughter of a guy named Oribe Shima. Now, Oribe Shima is a noble samurai who is banished by the emperor for some imagined slight. He's not really guilty, but the emperor thinks he's guilty. So because he's banished, he's sent to live on this far-off island, very, very far away, in a place called the Oki Islands. Anyway, he and his daughter are very close. They have a very good relationship. And when he is taken away from her, she's heartbroken. So she decides that she is going to join him. She will travel to the Oki Islands and to see her father again. Problem is she's young and female, and traveling alone on the road, no matter what gender you are, is generally not a good idea in fairy tales. So she sells everything. And she's, of higher birth, samurai class, and so she had a bit of money, and apparently she was, in the story it talks about a frail body, so she was like the ultimate noblewoman, but I really don't quite think that she had a frail body. I think they were just trying to play up how delicate and sweet she was, but I like to imagine that she's awesome. So she sets out for the coast and travels until she reaches a place called Akasaki, where you can see the Oki Islands from the shore. She tries to talk to some of the fishermen and get them to take her to the other side, but nobody will take her because the Oki Islands are prison islands. There are prisoners there and they could kill you. And no one was allowed to visit anybody who was banished. But Tokoyo never gave up. And some background on her is she grew up on the coast, and used to dive with the peasant women, which I think is pretty awesome. And so even though she's a frail body, she can, you know, do all of this awesome diving and getting for minutes and minutes on end and hold her breath for a really long time. So she has no luck trying to find someone to take her. So she buys a little food and gets to thinking. But at the evening, when night falls in the evening, she hears something. So she goes to a shrine, which is like on a cliff, I guess, and she hears the sound of a girl crying. So, as you know, she is wont to do because she is literally the coolest person ever, Tokoyo goes to find out what's happening, and she finds a woman dressed all in white and a priest standing at the edge of a cliff, which is crazy. So she prays to the Buddha, because religion in Japan was a great mishmash of about 3 different things at the time. And she hears the clapping of hands, and after the prayer, so there was a prayer, a guy prays and chants a Buddhist chant, and then leads the girl to the edge of the cliff. And the priest is about to push the other girl over the cliff when Tokoyo comes and grabs her and pulls her back from the edge, because my homegirl is all about supporting other women. And the priest was astonished, but of course not really surprised, because he could obviously tell you're not from here. So he explains to Tokoyo that I think you're not from here, because if you were, you would know that this is a completely normal thing that we do in this part of town, you know, sacrifice women and push them off of cliffs. Because there is a monster that lives in the ocean, that we were cursed on this island by an evil god called Yofune Nushi. And he lives at the bottom of the sea, and every year demands the sacrifice of one girl under 15 years of age to his kingdom. They make the offering on June 13th, on the Day of the Dog, between 8 and 9 o'clock. If we do not appease him, the evil god becomes angry and causes great storms at sea, and many of our fishermen drown. So Tokoyo listens seriously, and then speaks. She says, "Respected monk or priest, let her go and I will take her place, because I have nothing left to live for. You know, my father has been banished, I have no money, my family name has been dishonored. Let me be the sacrifice this year." However, Tokoyo has absolutely no intention of dying. So she pulls out her trusty knife, puts on the girl's white robe, and she realizes that the thing has no pocket. So she literally puts the knife between her teeth and dives into the ocean. So the priest and the girl settle down to wait for her body to come back to the surface. However, Tokoyo, as I mentioned before, is a diver. So she swims down and down and down, looking for this evil god, and hoping to at least get, you know, some good old, get a good old 1-2 in before the monster finishes her off. And she finds fish and coral, and finally an enormous cave. Now I could see this being an awesome movie, by the way. Like, at this point we've got adventure and an evil god and all sorts of things. So I really want to see this in movie form. Her swimming down through the ocean with a dagger in between her teeth. I just feel like it would be awesome. Anyway, so she swims down and she sees a statue of the emperor. Now this is the emperor who banished her father. So she's really tempted to just leave it there, because it's really dishonorable to have the emperor's statue likeness at the bottom of the ocean. And you know, she's not enormously happy with the guy, but because she is an honorable person, she decides, I'll try to save the statue to keep the emperor from being dishonored. So she tears off a part of her skirt, you know, ties the statue in a sling around her, and keeps looking for the monster. Then she's really not finding any monsters, so she swims back up, but as she gets out of the cave, she comes face to face with an enormous glowing snake monster. Like an underwater dragon made of moonlight. But she's really determined to kill the monster. She's got something to live for. After all, she really hasn't given up. She will go and see her father, because Tokoyo doesn't give up. So she swam very close, mind you, with the statue tied to her so that she's, you know, like, weighed down in the water. She swims toward him and sticks her dagger into his eye. Now the monster is frightened because obviously no one has ever fought back before, and tries to swim back into his cave, but because he's giant and half blind, he can't find his way. And taking advantage of his confusion, Tokoyo takes the dagger, stabs the monster in the heart, and the monster dies. Because she is literally the coolest. Anyway, so slowly and painfully, at this point she's starting to run out of breath because she's basically the best diver ever. And slowly she comes back to the surface. Now the priest, and the girl are still sitting on the shoreline waiting for her body to come back up, but they are completely shocked when she comes back up out of the water alive. Finally, you know, she gets up to the shore exhausted. They go and help her, and she tells them everything that happened, that she killed the monster, that she brought the statue back to the surface. And they called for some help to help her get her into a house and bathed and, you know, fixed back up from her epic battle with the sea monster. And finally, they're completely impressed, so they throw a huge party to celebrate the death of the sea monster. And are telling all the stories of her courage, when some interesting news comes into town. Apparently, the emperor had been very ill for some reason. Apparently, someone he had wronged, someone he had judged unfairly, had carved his likeness into a statue and thrown it into the sea, and he had been ill ever since, and mysteriously he had gotten better. The story, Tokoyo's story, made its way back to the capital, and he realized that the daughter of his old rival had been the one to save him. And, post-haste, he released his old rival, and Tokoyo and her father were reunited and sent back to their old lands with all of their dishonor scrubbed away. Now, I don't think you could lift this legend, like, wholesale and make it into a movie, but I really do think that you could take the bare bones of this plot, like a character like Tokoyo, and really, you don't have to change much. I really feel strongly that it just feels like Disney's been running out of ideas. And not just Disney, the movie industry in general. I mean, how many times do we need to retell Cinderella? You know? And I like Cinderella. I think she's, you know, a good role model in a lot of ways. But there are so many stories that I know that would make amazing movies that I think would break the box office. So hopefully over the next few weeks or months, however long I keep this up, I can tell you guys a few of those stories that you can discover them for yourselves, and hopefully somebody will write that movie. Anyway, I'm Katie Noel, signing off, and I will see all of you next time. Bye! Hey guys, well, now that you've heard this story, I want you guys to tell me some of your favorite stories. Maybe I'll even feature one in a later video. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I don't really know what that does, but hopefully you will be notified next time I make a video. I upload every Friday, and have a great day. Bye, guys.